So anyway, as I was saying, welcome to the 9th episode of Ask the Atlas Society. I said today we were getting back to our roots because we started out this live webinar back in March with students and young people having questions for the Atlas Society. We switched it up to have the Atlas Society Asks, where I would ask questions of people like Peter Kopsis, Jeffrey Tucker, Grover Norquist. And I really like that format because I got to ask the questions. I didn't have to be in the hot seat. But the fact that Maeve Ronan, who's my dear friend, and someone who's also with me, I'm in Dallas and she's also in Texas, and we're both from Massachusetts, was available. It made it kind of an easy choice for us to go back and restart our Ask the Atlas Society. So before I even get into introducing Maeve, I know that there are a few of you following today who may be following Maeve on some of her other social media platforms. So, so feel free to ask questions of her, ask questions of me. You can go ahead and you can just type those in to the comment section on Facebook, or just ask them to in the chat section on Zoom. And we're going to try to get to them, as many of them as possible, but please make them short, and that will improve your chances of having your questions answered. So, Maeve, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Maeve and I met a couple of years ago at a Young Americans for Liberty conference in Philadelphia. She was my right-hand gal at a Students for Liberty conference in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And as I mentioned, we both share Massachusetts as our home state. We were really excited to be together at the Young Americans for Liberty conference here in Dallas. Unfortunately, that got canceled, but we're both here in Texas and both in the same time zone. So, so I really wanted to get together with Maeve. Maeve is a Gen Z contrarian. She writes about values like individualism and productivity. She hadn't learned about those values in school. She hadn't been exposed to Ayn Rand. But when she did finally read the Fountainhead and then other books by great thinkers, she decided that she was going to write her own book. And she has interviewed over 100 successful individuals from around the globe, gathering their unique insights for her forthcoming book, If I Were Your Daughter, 7 success insights from Gen Z, from entrepreneurs around the world. So hi, Maeve, I'm glad we could get together today.
Yeah, this is so exciting. It feels like just yesterday when we met and I kind of started my journey interacting with the Atlas Society. So thank you for having me today. And I would love to get started, kind of dive right in and learn a little bit more about when you first heard of Ayn Rand, because from what I see on the internet, you know, TikTok, Snapchat, these are all the platforms that young people use nowadays for their news, to learn about new ideas. And I rarely hear of Ayn Rand. What I do is pretty negative. So when was the first moment you were introduced to Ayn Rand, and what was the first impression you had that stuck with you all those years?
Well, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I wish I could say that I read it early on, but I was kind of a latecomer to Ayn Rand, even though I went to a wonderful school in Newton, Massachusetts, and then I went on to Harvard. But it wasn't until my late 20s, and I was at the Cato Institute. I was the director of education policy. And around the water cooler, yes, it was actually a thing, I had a lot of great friends there, Tom Palmer, David Boas, Steve Moore, I think, yeah, was there at Cato when I was there. And then there was also Jose Pinera from Chile. And, you know, somebody would ask sort of a question and people would say, yeah, well, who is John Galt? And I would say, yeah, who is John Galt? And they would kind of nod. And I'd say, no, I really don't know who John Galt is. And I think it was Jose who very kindly took me aside and he said, I don't know how you got in here, okay, but before you embarrass yourself further, here is Atlas Shrugged. Just take a sick day or two and go home and read it. And I did, and I was hooked. I felt that it articulated a lot of things that I had been feeling but unable to find the words for all my life. It helped to put into perspective some early experiences that I had had in school, particularly experiences where I had been bullied or ostracized, and it wasn't necessarily for, things that were flaws of mine. It were more for things where I was excelling or I was achieving or I was standing out. And I know you've had a similar experience, Maeve. So it helped to articulate that for me. I then went back and I read everything that I could, including her nonfiction and of course her early fiction too, which I thought was very very moving and not quite as developed as some of her later work, but it had this sort of fresh, authenticity that where you could really see her personality coming through. So it connected for me in a big way. I had, for most of my life after that, I had an Ayn Rand license plate. I still do. But I moved to California. I took a job at Dole Food Company as sort of a senior vice president of marketing and running a nutrition institute. And I noticed, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago or so, that previously that the license plate, that any mention of Ayn Rand that I would make got a very sort of negative reaction, that people frowned or scowled. But increasingly what I was finding was that I was just encountering blank stares, that people didn't know who I was talking about. So when I was recruited to run the Atlas Society, I thought this is a tremendous opportunity because rather than starting out having to be on the defensive, right, and say, well, no, maybe you should give it a chance. We had the opportunity to completely reintroduce a new generation, people that had never heard of Ayn Rand, to the ideas, and to do it in ways that were different, that were suited and tailor-made for the way that people are reading and assimilating ideas today, which is very different. It's just consumer behavior is very different than it was 50 years ago. So it's I am not discouraged by the lack of awareness. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And I think what I'm also finding, though, as the Atlas Society is continuing to grow and continuing to reach more and more people via the internet and via our publications, via these kinds of webinars, you are going to have a negative reaction, right? Because she is still a very polarizing figure. And so that's, that's something else that also provides an opportunity for to use the heat, to use the sort of controversy generated around her in order to just say, well, hey, these are the ideas that we want to talk about, and what do you think?
That's such a great way to look at it as well. And I love hearing your story because I think everyone has a different story of how they were introduced to Ayn Rand and how it led them to where they are today. And I think, one of her she has many different ideas. And like you said, some of them are a little bit polarizing. One of which is the one that resonated with me, which is individualism. And the idea that you have the right to live your life how you wish, and that you don't need other people's permission, or you don't need to live a life for someone else. I think a lot of our youth today, at least in America, are being taught that collectivism and altruism are really the only options for if you want to be a good person. So I want to ask, what would be the 3 biggest consequences of actually prioritizing the greater good over the individual that could affect an average Gen Zer?
Well, that's a great question. I would say one very real consequence is fewer jobs and less opportunity. If prioritizing the greater good means that government has to confiscate wealth and capital, that means there's going to be less wealth and capital to be invested in starting new businesses, in growing existing businesses, and starting new ventures. Then maybe less directly, there's just going to be less initiative and less personal growth. To the extent that we deprioritize the individual, to the extent that we say the individual is not as important as the greater good, we're sending the message that what the individual thinks, what the individual does, the choices the individual makes, including the bad choices that the individual can make and can learn from, that we're saying it doesn't really matter as much, and it matters enormously. So we're going to shift the focus of a generation away from what they actually do have control over to an amorphous blob concept that they don't have control over, and that's going to paralyze individuals from making choices that will have a real impact on their life. Finally, I think what you're going to see is you're going to sow division and hatred between different groups, because to the extent that government decides what is the public good to which individual rights must be sacrificed, whatever political party or special interest group controls the government will impose that agenda. So issues that actually are a public good, like less disease, more economic growth, cleaner environment, become a weapon to impose top-down government controls rather than letting private innovation come up with solutions.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you mentioned the entrepreneurial aspect to it as well, that there would be less money for investing in that sense, because Generation Z is such an entrepreneurial generation. They really want to make social impact. And I'm excited to dive more into that at the end of this as well. For those of you just joining, make sure you type your comments, your questions, so we can get to those as well. And, I know you guys are doing a lot at the Atlas Society. One project is the Draw My Life videos. And I think the My Name is America one really struck me. And they just do such a great job illustrating these concepts and these ideas in a way that's really understandable for this generation, the younger generation. So I'm curious what topics you guys are considering for future episodes for those.
Well, My Name is Venezuela is scripted. We have an artist actually who's from Venezuela under contract, and she doesn't speak English that well, but fortunately we've been expanding into Latin America enough so that I can communicate with her in Spanish, which is very helpful since I'm going to be doing a Ask the Atlas Society live next week in Spanish. So that one is in the works. In terms of like how we come up with these concepts, originally when I came to the Atlas Society, and it was like 5 marbles. Here's your 5 marbles. What are you going to do with the 5 marbles? And I thought, and they had a video project that was already slated in the works. And I thought, well, we really don't have a lot of resources to create these things. I'd seen on the internet, one of my favorite comedians is unfortunately somebody who self-canceled herself or started to get canceled now, is just withdrawn her productive energies, not in a strike, but in a sort of a self-sacrificing way. But she had done a Draw My Life. I saw that other celebrities, other people were doing these very simple whiteboard animations where they would draw, it would be speed ramped with a voiceover. And I thought, well, we could do that. I mean, little did I know, it looks a lot easier than it is. But our very first Draw My Life, I wrote it, I drew it. It was, my name is Ayn Rand. I did the voiceover, and we had a very small, very, very small following on Facebook. So I just thought, well, throwing it out there, I mean, it was far from perfect. I even got her birth date wrong. I had to go back and fix that. But it blew up, and it just, it got 1 million views in a very short order. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something here. So we got funding to do anonymous funding to do 2 more. I did for characters. So I'd love to do more characters. I did My Name is Hank Reardon. I did My Name is Dagny Taggart. And those were much more professionally done. But then we wanted to take those, take the genre, the format, and apply it to concepts. So I think the very first one that we did was My Name is Envy. And those are a lot harder to do because you have to kind of create a whole origin story and create a narrative of, what was going for the protagonist or the antagonist, what was going against him, and then just kind of loop it all into a story and do it in like 5 minutes. So that took off. We've got another sort of front of the docket, one, which is going to be My Name is Free Speech. So that is going to be a wonderful and important one, specifically made to the kinds of things that you're talking about right now. And then we have a few other ones up our sleeve. I don't want to give them away, but we do take ideas from our trustees, from our donors. One donor, John Lang, who was very interested in Ludwig von Mises. So even though that was like, it was a little bit, outside of our wheelhouse in a way, he wanted to see that done. So we did it, and it did really well. So that's kind of, how those come together. We've also started doing, if anybody's interested, sort of happy hours, live Zoom happy hours with the creative team behind that. So we did one recently with donors and people that are involved with the Atlas Society on our latest Draw My Life, which is My Name is Bernie Sanders, and which was also a departure because he's an actual living politician. But I think he was a wonderful choice because I just found an incredible irony in the fact that he was preaching against individualism, for collectivism, for the greater good, and yet he is living proof of the power of the individual, because he, more than anyone, has almost single-handedly introduced a whole new generation to socialism, actual socialism, as a former socialist candidate and politician. So I mean, he's really done for socialism what Ron Paul did for libertarianism back 20 years ago. So I thought that even though we're nonpartisan, we do shy away from kind of talking about politicians. He was one that I mean, I didn't want to just say, well, just because he's a politician. I mean, the fact that his life was so perfectly sort of dovetailed and resonated with his ideology. I thought made him a very compelling artistic choice for Draw My Life.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see what you come up with next. I think the free speech one will be really interesting and much needed, especially with everything going on currently. I know we all are dealing with a lot and are looking forward to anything in the future. So I know that you guys have a annual gala coming up, and I would be really interested to hear more about that. And what's it been like planning that in this climate?
Oh my God. Well, it's been crazy. And Maeve, you know, I want you to come. And I just did a video, which I sent out like yesterday. And it should be up also on the Atlas Society site. It's on our social media, which is a personal video invitation for people to come to the gala. And one of the things that I mentioned in the video was, so, you know, we have some donors, Dale Bottoms, I hope you're on, Dale, hi, who, you know, for various reasons, they are not comfortable going themselves, but we have students like Maeve, we've got students like Leonard Robinson, we have a lot of young people who themselves don't have a high risk of getting the disease, or if they get it, they're, you know, going to have immunity and they're going to be fine. They want to go, and it's a tremendous opportunity for them to network and to gain those real life skills of being in a sort of a higher stakes, higher level social setting. So so thank you to LGBTQ for Liberty for being a sponsor, and for all of the people just in the past 24 hours. I was a little surprised that we got such a strong showing of people buying tables, buying tickets. So, I mean, it's in part thanks to, I think people just didn't really know about it. They didn't know about this extraordinary lineup that we have with Peter Diamandis, who's the co-founder of X Prize and Singularity University. He is our honoree this year. That's one of the reasons that it's LA based, because that was a kind of a condition of him accepting the invitation to be this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. We also have Chip Wilson, who was last year's honoree, and he's going to be personally presenting Peter with the award. He's flying down from Vancouver. And then we have kind of a new concept, the athlete as Atlas. We're doing a panel. Joe DeSena, who is just awesome. He's another sponsor of the gala this year. He's going to be, and Maeve, you know, you got to meet him, or maybe you met him last year. He's the founder of Spartan Inc. And he's just really so personally inspiring. Talk about an industry. I mean, the events industry, the sports events industry has been hard hit. And then also Laird Hamilton, big wave surfer, and Gabby Reese and Chip Wilson are going to be a part of that panel. So it's coming along nicely. It's going to be in Beverly Hills. We've signed the venue. And then also it's, oh, I had some interesting developments this week. We're both on TikTok, and so I've been looking to see who are some of the people with huge audiences that have either a message that really resonates with the values of individualism and optimism and gratitude that we are promoting. And so one of those is Terence Gibbs. And he hasn't read Ayn Rand yet, but I mean, I'm just listening to what the guy is preaching, and it was just, I just knew it was a perfect fit. So he's going to be my guest. He's going to come out to the gala. He's going to do a TikTok live from the gala. And then also Noah Peccary. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name yet, but he is going to be our MC. And this guy, he does an incredible impersonations. He does this incredible very funny impersonation of Donald Trump. And I think he's got 200 impersonations that he does. So he's going to come and be entertainment for us. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see a lot of you guys who are watching there. Oh, and so yeah, that was one of the things I said in the video was we are doing just to help people kind of get off the, get out of the isolation mode, just get unstuck, because even if they want to come or they're in LA or they're local, it's a little hard to transition out of just being in that sort of fear mode, isolation mode. So we have a sale on tickets that's going on right now. The individual tickets usually 500, they're now 350. And half tables usually were 5,000. Those were 5 seats, and now they're 3,500. So who knows? Maybe we'll get some ticket sales just from this show.
Yeah, it's going to be such a great time. I can't wait. The lineup is amazing. And from last year, I had a blast and so grateful for the opportunity. So if anyone's listening, it's definitely worth it. I mean, Beverly Hills. Wow, can't go wrong there.
Yeah, somebody get a ticket for Maeve, please.
I wouldn't complain. Yeah, so that's really exciting to hear what the Atlas Society is up to. And I know you guys always have something in the works. And it's been great to see your audience grow over the year that I've known you. It's been incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable. I'm so grateful.
Definitely. So I know we touched on earlier about entrepreneurship and about individualism. I would love to kind of circle back to that because a lot of the Gen Zers that I mentor are very driven, they're passionate, they have this fire of wanting to make social change. And what I observe is a lot of times their efforts, I think, get lost in political campaigns or in activism, which not to say there's anything wrong with those avenues, but I'm wondering if you have any ideas of other ways that young people can make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to individualism. I think the most important thing that you can do to make a positive change in the world is to do what you can with what you have, right here, as Teddy Roosevelt would say. So the most important thing that you can do is to be a virtuous person in your own life. That means not sacrificing yourself to others or sacrificing others to yourself. It's very basic, fundamental things. I know Terence, who I mentioned before, talks about this. It's just not a question of large systemic, reforms as much as personal morality. So that means being honest, because if you're not honest, you are sacrificing, you're misrepresenting yourself and you're sacrificing other people to yourself. That means being independent. That means standing on your own 2 feet, not mooching off of others or living at the expense of others. It means being productive, whether that is, productive in your job or just productive in improving your mind and being a part of a webinar like this, or reading Ayn Rand, or cleaning your kitchen or making your bed. Just productivity as a virtue, something to embrace. It means being reliable. It means being responsible. It means being kind. It means being grateful. It means being loyal. It means being cheerful. All of these are things, embracing these virtues as individuals and modeling them for others are one of the most important things you can do to make a positive change in the world. And as you keep locking those, fundamentals in, and, it's a lifelong practice in terms of what you're going to do with your life. You can, I always recommend that you think about the things that you do, that you would do even if anybody wasn't paying you, if anybody wasn't watching, things that you're really good at, things where you're in flow, and then work to get really, really good at those things so that, that you can eventually monetize them. And so, you know, think about it, what it is that is your default. So whether, you know, if it's something you're passionate about, nature, you're passionate about protecting people, you're passionate about cooking, whatever it might be, I would say just kind of dive deep into that. And if you're doing something that you really enjoy doing and that is your default, you're going to have a much better chance of being successful at it, and developing it into a business or developing it into a nonprofit, and being that solution through your business or your nonprofit that can actually address some of these more global or more national issues that you face. And that default isn't necessarily, you know, it should be something virtuous, but I would, you know, encourage people to just even be honest with what it is that is their default. It could be something that we don't necessarily naturally think of as a virtue. I have a girlfriend, very loyal girlfriend, very smart girlfriend, who is now enormously successful. She's making millions of dollars a year. She is living and doing what she's always wanted to do as a national television host. And I remember, though, in the many, many years that I knew her, one of the things that was sometimes hard to be around was that she was very critical. She was like, she would see people walking on the street. She would criticize them. We would be out. She would criticize what I was wearing. She would criticize, you know, what I was eating. And I needed to sort of say, okay, well, taking the good with the bad. She had so many wonderful qualities that outweighed that. But to me, it's kind of extraordinary that she found a way, you know, to channel this thing that she was doing, rather than say, oh, I'm not going to be critical. She found a way to channel it into being a professional critic and to criticizing the things that she sees in the world that, you know, doesn't agree with. So yeah, so I'd say that those are the things that you can start doing to find it, what it is your flow, is your gift, the thing that is going to be most effective and most fulfilling.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear how she used that quality about her to really make it in her career. And I think that's a lot about what I talk about through my book, through my writing, is that it really starts with your foundation, really discovering who you are, who you want to be, what your values are. And then, like you said, figuring out what you're good at and what impact you want to have, and becoming as good as you can at that. So I really like that, that way of looking at it. And something else that I always hear on the top of Generation Z on their minds, in addition to this social change and entrepreneurship mindset, is also a socialist mindset, which they're learning from being in college or from social media. And I want to know if it's so celebrated, if it's so popular, is it really that bad?
It's such an interesting way to even frame the question. And I think it's that kind of mindset is something that's made possible. You know, it's made possible by the fact that we have had recently a free and entrepreneurial economy, which has generated just tons of different options for people to have, almost, you know, too many options, a little overwhelming a number of options, so many different brands of cereals, so many different shows to watch on Netflix, so many different options to go, you know, for fast food or whatever. And so, you know, so many sports options that we think, oh, well, gosh, no, I don't really like that, but a lot of other people seem to like it, so maybe I should give that show a try. Maybe I should give it a try, because it can't, how bad can it be that in a free society you know, in a free market, that so many people are voting for this thing that we think is an abomination. So I think it's ironically just even a luxury, you know, that the fact that people would be able to think that way comes from the fact that we generally think about alternatives in a environment of abundance, you know, which is created by capitalism. I think the other thing that I would say, and you kind of touched on this when you said, well, people go into college and they start getting exposed to this. I mean, I'm not a pollster by any means, but I have looked at some of the polling data, and I think it's interesting that while yes, there are definitely a larger proportion of Gen Z and the millennials that have a favorable view of socialism, it kind of spikes when they go into college, and then it kind of drops back down afterwards. So if there's a silver lining about the university system destroying itself, is that a source of extremely fatal infection, which is the infection of envy, which is the hatred of the good for being good, the infection of greed, which is the desire for the unearned, infection of socialism. That has been locked down or self-locked down. So so it'll be interesting to see how that plays forward in terms of the effects that has. But also when you then look a little bit on a deeper layer of the polling, you know, yes, maybe you'll have a 30% of a certain generation saying that they have a favorable view of socialism. But that same age group, when you ask them, what is socialism? The percentage that can actually identify socialism as the public ownership of the means of production, or even, I mean, that's 16% includes that, a government-directed economy. It's a much smaller percentage than you see, I think, over 30, that actually people that say that they're for socialism are actually for a government-managed economy, or even a nationalization of businesses. So, so I think that is that's something that is at work there. I also think that that, you know, to the extent that the people that are supposed to be defending capitalism are so apologetic about defending capitalism, and they just say, well, you know, it's got its flaws, but it's the best, it's the lesser of two evils, or it's a lesser of you know, all flawed systems, rather than mounting a vigorous moral defense of individualism, of the individual's right to his own life, of a moral defense of the virtues that are encouraged under a capitalist system, which is productivity, innovation, creativity, achievement, that we really need to also take a look in the mirror and say, you know, if we're just going to be not just criticizing socialism, but doing so in, you know, wonky economic terms, and failing to make the moral case for capitalism, then, you know, we bear some of the responsibility for the surging popularity of the system that we abhor.
Yeah, well, I will have to say that I believe what you say about college students, because I was one of them at one point and was definitely floating down that path of more socialist thinking. And I had no idea the logistics of it. It was just what everyone was doing around me. So I have to say it's much more freeing to be able to use your own mind and take each topic as it comes and think for yourself about it. So I could ask you questions all day, but I want to know if we had any questions from people watching we wanted to touch on.
Yes, we do. We see Gigi. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing your name right. She just says, hi, everyone. So happy and grateful to be here. Leo Sapicki is having a good laugh. And let's see, Gary Bolaños. Hola, Gary. Greetings from Costa Rica. How to address the mandatory lockdowns and mandatory home isolations against the individual freedom from an objectivist point of view. Well, yeah, I would say that it's important to I would say, to be objective, you must have perspective, and it is impossible to have a perspective on what is happening without looking at the trade-offs that are involved in terms of the absolute wanton, brutal destruction of individuals, businesses, of their agency, of their futures. And even it's not just that we're attempting with the lockdowns to control one disease. We are by creating so much poverty on a global scale. We're seeing a resurgence of other diseases which have been, or infections which have been long kind of kept under control, including HIV, which people are not getting the treatment for, they're not getting testing for, seeing a resurgence of polio in certain parts of the world where people are not able to get vaccines. We're just seeing a huge destruction of wealth. So there are something that we are continuing at the Atlas Society. We've had Jeffrey Tucker on, who's been following this very carefully. We've been continuing to advocate for individual agency and for an individual's right to his or her own life. But I also would encourage you to check out the work of Jeffrey. I've had Steve Moore on. If you're not signed up for his Unleashed Prosperity hotline, then definitely check out the Committee to Unleash Prosperity and see that as well. So, okay. So yes, so Maeve, you had another question, I think. Oh, we're boy, time flies. It's almost, I think we only have another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it goes by quick. Yeah, I mean,
I have a question for you, Maeve. And it's a question about what was your journey? You just moved from Massachusetts, where we both grew up, okay? And tell us about how you first heard about Ayn Rand, and what's your journey been? Because you're living it. You're not just out there advocating, you're not just out there pushing, you're actually living your values. So tell us about your decision to leave your home state, leave your family, and come to Texas.
Yeah, definitely. It's been quite the journey that has taken me all over the world. And it started when I was 19. I was in college, my second year of college. And after some family trouble as a teenager, I really felt sorry for myself. I had this victimhood mindset where other people had did me wrong and that they needed to fix their problems so that I could go on living my life. And I was dealing with a lot of mental health issues. I didn't really like being in college because I felt like there was no room for intellectual curiosity or discussion. It was, if you don't think one way, then you're crazy, you're shunned, you're this name or that name. And so I actually reached out to my dad, who I hadn't spoken with actually for about a year. And I kind of explained what was going on. And he said, I have the book for you. I think you're ready for it.
Oh.
and it was The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I had never heard of her, and so I read it in my sophomore year of college. I carried it around on campus like I do with books I'm reading, and a few people commented on it. They said, "You're reading Ayn Rand. You know who that is, right?" No, I don't. That's why I'm reading it, so I can make up my own mind about it. And that book really kind of changed things for me. It made me realize that if I wanted my life to get better, I had to do it. I had to take responsibility for what I was facing, and it was up to me to figure that out. So I actually ended up leaving college not too long after.
I know, I remember that. I was really, you've been living it for a while, and I think it's just, I'm also very interested to see if, those early moves that you made, like leaving college, right? Wow, that's so scary. Wow, I mean, everybody thinks I'm wrong. If it became easier, as you went on to make moves and to be willing to kind of go against the grain and be willing to accept, like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm gonna, do it anyway. I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, it was definitely tough, but I think coming at it from a mindset of, I just want to go hear it for myself, and then I'll make the decision. It's not a crime to listen to an idea. It's what you do with it that really matters. So I remember when we met actually at the YAL conference, I was hiding my face. Whenever I saw a camera, I didn't want anyone to know I was there. It was scary for me to go against what I was surrounded by in college. And really thanks to you and Atlas Society and other people I've met who are open to more discussion of different ideas, I've been able to build that confidence in myself and in my beliefs, and been able to take that to continue growing and continue making these moves that are bettering my life and then the people that I speak to. So thank you for being a part of my life.
I know, I remember when we first met, and I couldn't believe this because I just was struck by this beautiful, beautiful, tall, willowy, long hair, beautiful young woman. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, no, I know. That must be kind of hard being so beautiful that people, probably they're not so nice, right? Because they just have it in their minds that they wish that they looked like you, and you were a little bewildered, and you didn't even recognize. I was like, sweetheart, look in the mirror. You're gorgeous. You're a gorgeous young lady. All right, we got another gorgeous lady, Vicky, who would, and then I think we're going to have time for this one last question. She would like to hear about the book, Maeve, that you're working on. How did you come up with the idea of writing a book, giving advice to those in Gen Z? And what are a couple of the things that really were the most mind-blowing to you throughout the process?
Yeah, so the book was born out of my realizations of finding this world of individualism and self-improvement, and realizing how much it helped me. And I was frustrated I didn't have these ideas and these insights when I was in high school, because I really, really needed them. So once I started finding these ideas, I decided to ask other accomplished people what their advice was for high schoolers. And that's around the same time I left college. Well, I took a semester off, so it was gradual change, and traveled to different parts of the world to see if people's opinions and beliefs differed based on where they were. And what I found was these 7 key insights that really kept coming up with all these successful people. And success being either they were an expert in their field, they had a story of adversity and they made it through, or they're financially successful. And one of the key lessons I learned was to just start wherever you are, You're never going to be an expert. You're never going to have it all figured out. You just need to start somewhere. And that's really where all these accomplished, incredible mentors I spoke with, they talked about where they started. And it's exciting to see how they've grown and to pass that on to the younger generation as well, that their future is waiting for them. They just got to get going.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I know one criticism that I've had over the course of my career, and it's definitely a merited criticism, is, you know, people would say, Jag, it's, see, I'm not even going to be able to remember the order, but it's ready, aim, fire, okay? So you got to get ready, okay? And then you got to aim, and then you got to fire. And that they would say that I would just sometimes like fire, and not in an angry way, but that I would just do something before I had like all of the preparation and all of the planning and everything together. And I, you know, definitely as I've become better at planning and preparation, things have gone well. But I think that there's something to be said for just doing it, you know, particularly if you're in a creative field. I mean, it's not science so much and other things like that, but you have to start experimenting. And I think that that also objectivism, the way I interpret it, really can be helpful there, because I know you previously asked about the cancel culture and whether or not that truly was progressive. And I think that if you understand progress to mean something that is better, you know, than what is right now going forward, progress is different than now. So you have to first be willing to tolerate something that is different. And to the extent that we have a cancel culture, whether it's at schools or, you know, I think frankly, even within objectivism to an extent, that's really what the Atlas Society grew out of, was David Kelly's Truth and Toleration, was talking about the importance of tolerating different points of view. That is the way to progress, right? That orthodoxy and demanding that everyone be kind of in lockstep. You know, I mean, you might be able to preserve things more, but in terms of developing things, and certainly in terms of communicating things, that you are going to be limited. So Kai, and I'm not sure, so yeah, it's just a sweet thing. He says, FYI, I'm 71 years old, and he discovered Atlas Shrugged a few years ago, recently reread it. He strongly identifies with and admires the principles of Ayn Rand, found the Atlas Society online, logged in to see what we do, and he's gratified to learn that there are young people, yes, like Maeve, who can embrace those themes. And Maeve also is a part of our book club that Anna Kugler puts together, and boy, we've got a really strong group. It's grown so much, actually. Gigi says, I love Maeve, she is amazing. So yeah, so it's grown so much. I just want to, you know, let people know that we're now, we're actually thinking, oh, can we still provide all of these books? I mean, the Atlas Society is a very small organization, and we're not really in a position to ship, you know, all of these books around the world. So, you know, if you want to see things like the kinds of programs like the book club that we're offering for Maeve, if you want to see things like getting more young people involved in the Atlas intellectuals, then consider just, you know, hitting us up with a small donation. And Chairman Jay LaPere is doubling, especially if you have never given us, it's been a while since you've invested in the Atlas Society. He's doubling all new donations and all legacy, you know, lapsed donations. So if you want to give $10 to the Atlas Society, you won't have to give $5, because thanks to Jay, it's going to be double. So thank you to all of you who are watching, who support the Atlas Society. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for being a part of what we do. I think it's encouraging for Maeve. It really is wonderfully gratifying for me. And make sure to sign up for the Atlas Society newsletter if you haven't, because that's where you'll always get notifications on our upcoming Ask the Atlas Society and the Atlas Society Asks. I think we have them planned out through November. So, yeah, so come and join us, even if you're isolated in your home. You don't have to be isolated. We have a wonderful community, and we are very grateful to have you with us, and very grateful to have you, Maeve.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay. And I'm going to see you IRL in real life.
Very soon. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.